So I have a thought that, or an interpretation that I want to share. I think that a lot of us can become somewhat turned off by religious texts when it starts to differentiate the wicked from like the good, or whatever the good is, the righteous, I guess, would be um, the other side, and all the things that will happen to the supposed wicked and versus, the blessings of the righteous in the future, the world to come. But reading the Zohar and Kabbalistic texts, which invite us to find more symbolic or metaphorical or esoteric understandings or interpretation of the text. Because seeing like individuals or groups of people as the wicked, and then other people or, individual or groups as the righteous would be like a very literal and superficial, not superficial like in a necessarily negative way, but just in a limited way, interpretation. But what if we looked at, because right here I was reading, names of the righteous are auspicious, names of the wicked ominous. But what if that didn't necessarily mean people, but that meant energies and vibrations and frequencies? So, so what the wicked would be something, energies that we can all experience. Like if you've ever seen the ladder of emotions, I don't know a lot about it, but you can look it up. I don't know who came up with it. I'm sure that would be easy to find though. And at the bottom, there are emotions or states of mind or attitudes like fear, guilt, shame, etc. And on the top rungs of the ladder are emotions like passion and compassion and joy and bliss and excitement, etc. So so, what if when we read any sort of religious text and it talks about the wicked and the righteous, we look at that not as designating people, but as designating energies that we can all house within us and choose between? So, just my thought. So, just to kind of reiterate my point, so here it says, you will trample the wicked, for they will be ashes under the soles of your feet. Happy are the righteous in this world and in the world that is coming. Of them is written, the righteous will inherit the land forever. So again, I don't see this being as referring to individuals or any person. This is about energy. I think it's really interesting, this refrain about the world that is coming. So, the world that is coming has inherited or will be characterized frequencies of a higher vibration. Lower frequencies will sort of pass away. So it's not people that will be divided. It's that there is a promise of, or an anticipation, or a possibility, or a potentiality for a realm, a dimension, a world, whatever you want to call it. Some people, are calling it like 5D versus 3D, whatever you want to call it is fine, I think. That it's possible. It's possible to live and create a world where we learn and we grow and we evolve and we are enlightened through ease and flow versus the old way, which is learning through opposition. A lot of the religions seem to, or religious texts, seem to indicate the necessity of suffering, or at least acknowledge that there is suffering. Even the idea of the dark night of the soul, which is, I guess, followed by spiritual awakening. You go through a low point and you sort of arise from that. And we can see the logic or the reality of this, right? Like a lot of people who have been through suffering are, I would say, at least in my experience, maybe in yours, they have developed a compassion for other people who are suffering. Whereas maybe people who have been, somehow avoided suffering, maybe there's a bit of a distance between the kind of empathy that the first group of people, can achieve. Um, so then that starts to maybe get into the conversation of, well, if suffering leads to compassion and enlightenment, then maybe suffering is a necessary evil. I don't think that that is the case. Um, I think that I mean, I haven't figured it out exactly. Um, or maybe we could say that it was at one time necessary, but I don't think well, and then that just makes it necessary all again. I don't know. I mean, I had to think about it, but the other way, I guess, that I would characterize is that maybe, or maybe I would just put it as a question. Can we grow and achieve compassion and empathy and joy and be enlightened and, continue to learn, etc., not through opposition? Like Jung talks a lot about opposition. He talks about like that's the law of the universe. That's why truth often is paradoxical, or paradoxes often seem very truthful. There's a balance, there's the yin and yang, there's, you know, this duality. But in looking at or imagining going beyond duality, can we have a base of good and then sort of grow from there? I'll give you an example. Um, for me, studying religious studies and getting my PhD in it was good. I mean, that's a foundational, like there's nothing bad in it. It was great. I got to explore and study, and it was from an academic standpoint, so it wasn't like dogmatic or anything. It was just like it was good. It was wonderful. And I'm constantly returning to spiritual and religious texts. But there was a time where I kind of maybe shelved religious studies and I started to get into philosophy, and that led me into psychology. And the better is putting all those things together and having religion infuse spirituality and psychology infuse religion and religion infuse and mythology infuse psychology. And so there's this expansion and this growth without anything bad. That is in contrast to maybe a realm of oppositions. Like, so in practicing my evangelical, fundamentalist, Protestant Christianity, I did suffer from the dogma in that, let's say. And then I still sort of yearned for something that had depth and that could be, I guess, something beyond the material and the physical, or the rational and the logical. And so that was spiritual. And so a lot of people say, myself included, that, well, I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual. Right. But that's learning about spirituality through opposition. It's learning about freedom and liberation, um, in contrast to dogma. So I feel like these are two ways of growing for sure. Like, I'm glad that I maybe had my background, even though I suffered in fundamentalist Christianity. I'm glad I had that because it maybe in some way like led me to spirituality. I searched out alternative texts. But those are, two different ways. So I don't know. Um, yeah, just a thought.